The first time Rex Calhoun decided to make me a lesson, he did it where the most people could watch. It was a Monday morning in Atlanta, Georgia, inside Kestrel Point Claim Solutions' glass-walled war room, the one designed to look like a trading floor. Monitors lined the walls with live dashboards, collections rates, denial volumes, client SLA timers, numbers so bright they felt like heat. 40 employees stood shoulder to shoulder, coffee cups in hand, trying to look busy enough to be invisible. On the screen behind Rex, a single figure glowed in red, $118,000. That number belonged to Piedmont Ridge Hospital Group, a client we serviced for revenue cycle management. According to Rex, we were about to eat a penalty because someone missed a submission deadline tied to a new contract clause. He didn't say someone for long. Rex was the COO, broad-shouldered, smooth-talking, the kind of man who made cruelty sound like leadership. He wore an immaculate suit even when the rest of us were in company polos, like he needed everyone to remember who had power. His voice traveled easily through the room. Talia Nguyen, up front. My stomach tightened before my feet moved. I was 29, a senior claims operations analyst, and I'd learned to keep my face calm even when my chest felt like it was being cinched. I depended on my job for more than pride. My mother's chemo was billed through the insurance Kestrel Point provided. The copays alone were draining me. $75 here, $120 there, and the idea of losing coverage wasn't abstract. It was a calendar full of appointments I couldn't cancel. I stepped forward. The air smelled like dry erase markers and cold coffee. Rex tapped the red number with one finger, like he was pressing it into my skin. Explain to the room why you just cost this company $118,000. My mouth opened. The file was submitted Friday at 4:52 p.m. The confirmation, a hand cut through the air. No, don't hide behind confirmations. Tell them what you did. I didn't miss the deadline, I said, careful and steady. I have the submission receipt from the clearinghouse, and I emailed it to... Rex leaned closer, smile thin. You always have an email. You always have a story. And you always have life problems. I felt the eyes on me like a weight. I could already hear it spreading later, the version that would stick. Talia messed up. Talia couldn't handle the pressure. I escalated the client's new format requirements 2 weeks ago, I continued. I asked for IT mapping support. We didn't get it until Friday afternoon. I stayed late to... Rex's laugh landed hard in the room. Not loud, just sharp enough to signal permission. A few nervous chuckles followed, the kind people use to protect themselves. He pivoted slightly so everyone could see his face, so everyone could see mine. She stayed late, his voice dripping with mock admiration. Heroic. But staying late doesn't erase incompetence. I did what I could with the resources provided, I said. The delay wasn't on my end. That's when he decided to go for the thing he knew would hurt the most. He'd known about my mother because I'd asked for 2 afternoons off to drive her to Emory for infusions. I'd done it the right way. Requests in writing, coverage arranged, deadlines met anyway. Rex let his gaze slide down the front row of employees, then settle back on me. Here's the truth, Talia. This isn't a charity, and your home life isn't a company-wide group project. My throat tightened. I'm not asking for charity. I'm asking you not to blame me for an IT bottleneck. His smile widened like he'd been waiting for me to say the word blame. If your mom's cancer is such a distraction, maybe you should just handle it after work. Or better yet, his voice dipped into something colder, more deliberate. Stop dragging it into meetings like it buys you special treatment. A silence fell so thick it made my ears ring. Then he delivered the line he would later pretend he never said. Some people are built for this job. Some people are built to sit in hospitals and cry. Pick one. It wasn't just cruel. It was surgical, aimed directly at the most vulnerable place in me. And he did it with an audience. Because humiliation is easier to deny when it's witnessed by people who want to keep their jobs. I held my hands together so they wouldn't tremble. The submission was on time, I said. If the client is claiming otherwise, the audit log will show when they received it. Rex's eyes flashed, annoyed that I hadn't broken. You're on thin ice, Talia. He turned to the room and spoke like a verdict. Starting today, she's on a performance improvement plan. 90 days, no excuses. On the screen, The red $118,000 stayed up like a warning, and my name felt like it had been taped next to it. After the meeting, HR called me in as if this was just routine housekeeping. Carmen Dillard, HR business partner, sat behind a neat desk with framed culture slogans on the wall. She had the same soft voice she used when she wanted to sound supportive while doing nothing. The PIP was already printed. My goals were suddenly impossible. Reduce denial backlog by 40% without overtime approval. Maintain a 96% first-pass acceptance rate while managing the messiest payer mix on the team. And buried in the last page was a clause about availability expectations that effectively erased the flexible schedule I used for my mother's treatments. I pointed at it. This removes my approved accommodations. Carmen folded her hands. Leadership is concerned about reliability. Leadership publicly blamed me for an IT delay, I said. And he referenced my mother's cancer in front of 40 people. Carmen's expression barely shifted. Rex has a direct style. He told me to pick between my job and crying in a hospital. A pause. Carmen's eyes flicked toward the door, as if Rex might be listening through it. Let's focus on moving forward. Sign the plan, Talia. The paper felt hot under my fingertips. If I sign, I'm agreeing I failed. It's not an admission, Carmen replied too quickly. It's acknowledgement. What she meant was, accept the narrative or we'll make your life worse. I signed because my mother's next infusion was scheduled for Thursday and my insurance card had Kestrel Point's logo on it. The escalation came in small, relentless cuts. My workload doubled. The easiest client accounts were reassigned temporarily and never returned. My access to the internal mapping ticket queue disappeared, which meant I couldn't even check on the IT support Rex blamed me for not coordinating. Team meetings were suddenly scheduled at 6:45 a.m., just early enough to punish anyone with obligations outside work. When I arrived at 7:03 one morning after dropping my mother at the clinic, still within the grace period our handbook allowed, Rex stood beside my desk so others could hear. Late again? His voice light, almost amused. Cancer schedule? Heat rose in my cheeks. I kept my tone flat. I logged in remotely at 6:30. The record is in VPN. Rex's smile didn't move. No one cares where you were. They care if you're here. The next Friday, my quarterly bonus hit the payroll system. Or it should have. My bonus was $8,400, tied to metrics I'd met before the PIP was engineered. Instead, the payroll line showed 010 and a note, withheld pending improvement plan completion. I stared at the screen in disbelief, because that money was the difference between paying my mother's out-of-network lab bill, $2,970, and letting it go to collections. Carmen's reply to my email came 2 hours later. One sentence: employees on performance plans are not eligible for discretionary incentives. Discretionary. As if it was a favor, not compensation tied to targets. The following week, Rex called me into his office with the door open, like he wanted the hallway to hear. He slid a sheet of paper across his desk. New directive, effective immediately. It was a list of billing optimization opportunities for government payers, language that made my skin go cold. I'd grown up translating for relatives who were terrified of official letters. I knew exactly what euphemisms were for. Optimization meant changing codes to get paid more. My voice stayed calm. These adjustments require clinical documentation. We can't elevate codes without provider notes. Rex leaned back, studying me. You're not the compliance police. I'm not trying to be, I said. I'm trying not to submit false claims. His eyes narrowed, then softened into a smile that felt worse. You're scared. The tone almost tender, like he was diagnosing a weakness. That's what this is. You're scared because you need this job. You need the insurance. You need the paycheck. My stomach tightened. My mother had a port in her chest and a calendar full of scans. I did need this job. Rex's voice dropped a notch, intimate and cruel. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to follow the directive, and you're going to stop acting like you're smarter than everyone else. I held his gaze. I'm not doing it. His smile vanished so fast it was like a mask ripped away. Then you're refusing a lawful instruction. I'm refusing an unlawful one. Rex's laugh was quiet. You really want to play lawyer? The door being open meant people could hear his tone, could hear the contempt. He wanted me to feel alone. 2 business days later, my access card failed at the lobby turnstile. A security guard I'd said good morning to for 2 years avoided my eyes as he asked for my badge. Carmen appeared with an envelope like she'd rehearsed the walk. Termination. Her voice brisk, professional. Insubordination. Failure to meet performance expectations. My insurance. The words came out before I could stop them. Carmen's lips pressed together. Coverage ends tonight at midnight. You'll receive COBRA information in the mail. That afternoon, I sat in my car in the parking lot with the envelope on the passenger seat and my phone in my hand, staring at the chemo appointment reminder that popped up like a cruel joke. COBRA came with a number that made my throat tighten, $1,263.40 a month. I paid it anyway because letting my mother miss treatment wasn't an option. My savings bled out in steady, silent amounts. Rent $1,690, insurance $1,263.40, gas, groceries, the lab bill. I took freelance work at night reviewing claim edits for smaller clinics, the kind of gig that paid just enough to keep the lights on. Kestrel Point didn't just fire me. They fought to keep me from breathing afterward. They contested my unemployment claim. They claimed misconduct. They claimed refusal to perform job duties. They filed it like a final insult. You don't deserve even that. So, I filed an appeal. The hearing turned into court because Kestrel Point didn't want a quiet administrative decision. They wanted a public win. They wanted to make an example out of the woman who said no. By the time I walked into Fulton County State Court on a humid Thursday morning, my mother's scarf sat folded in my bag like a talisman. She was too weak to come with me. I came alone, like Rex had predicted I would. Because what kind of support system does a woman have when she's been forced to spend every ounce of strength just surviving? In the hallway outside the courtroom, Rex stood with Kestrel Point's attorney, a glossy-haired man in a tailored suit who looked like he billed in 15-minute increments. Rex's eyes locked on me, and a laugh slipped out of him, effortless and loud enough to turn heads. "Look at this," he said, like the hallway was his stage. "She actually thinks she belongs in here." I didn't respond. I held my folder tighter, the one with tabbed exhibits and printed logs. Rex's smile sharpened. "Where's your lawyer, Talia?" I met his eyes briefly, then looked away as if he wasn't worth the energy. I could feel the old reflex, the urge to explain myself, to justify, to prove I wasn't the caricature he'd made. I forced it down. Calm was its own weapon. Inside the courtroom, Rex made himself comfortable at the defense table, leaning back, chatting with his attorney like this was a networking event. When I took my seat at the opposite table alone, he actually chuckled. The judge entered. Judge Miriam Costello, silver hair pulled back, expression unreadable. She scanned the room with a kind of tired authority, the kind that had heard every polished lie 1,000 times. The clerk called the case. Kestrel Point's attorney rose first, voice smooth, confident. The story came out clean and rehearsed. Employee refused directives. Employee had attendance issues. Employee created disruption. Rex nodded along, looking pained, as if firing me had been an act of mercy. Then it was my turn. I stood. My hands stayed steady on the edge of the table. "Your Honor, I'm appearing pro se." Rex's laugh burst out, quick and contemptuous, before he could stop it. "Of course she is." Judge Costello's gaze snapped to him. Silence settled immediately, heavy and sharp. Rex shrugged, still smiling like he couldn't imagine consequences. I began calmly. I introduced my exhibits. The PIP issued immediately after the client deadline dispute, the email showing the actual submission confirmation, the bonus withheld as retaliation, my HR complaint referencing Rex's remarks about my mother's cancer. I spoke in clean sentences. No drama, no pleading. Rex's attorney objected twice, each time sounding less certain, because the documents were too specific, too dated, too real. Then I placed one more document on top of my stack, a printed screenshot of an internal directive with Rex's name on it and a list of optimization changes for government payer codes. Judge Costello leaned forward slightly. "Ms. Nguyen, what is this document?" "A directive to adjust billing codes without supporting documentation." My voice steady. I refused. 2 days later, I was terminated for insubordination. Rex's laugh came again, louder this time, sharp with disbelief. This is ridiculous. She's trying to make it sound criminal because she couldn't handle a grown-up job. Judge Costello didn't look at me. She kept her eyes on Rex like he was a child interrupting a sermon. Mr. Calhoun, her voice even, you'll refrain from commentary. Rex lifted his hands in a mock apology, still smirking. Sure, I just can't believe we're doing this. Judge Costello's gaze shifted back to the papers in front of her, then to me, as if confirming something she already knew. Her expression changed. Not warmer, not softer, but more precise, like a lens clicking into focus. Then she looked straight at Rex. Sir, she said, quiet enough that it forced the entire room to lean in. Do you know she's on the legal board? The words hit like a gavel inside my chest. Rex froze. His smirk collapsed in real time, as if the muscles forgot how to hold it. He stared at Judge Costello, then at me, blinking rapidly. His attorney turned his head toward Rex with a sudden, sharp question in his eyes. What did you do? Rex's voice came out thin. What? Legal board? Judge Costello didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The State Bar's board. I recognize Ms. Nguyen from committee work. Rex's mouth opened, then closed. A flush crept up his neck, the first visible crack in the man who'd always relied on laughter to control a room. It wasn't that being on the board made me untouchable. It didn't. It didn't grant me magic power or special treatment. It did something far more devastating to Rex's strategy. It shattered his narrative that I was ignorant, emotional, easy to steamroll. And in that split-second silence, with the power dynamic flipping so hard I could feel it in the air, I delivered the sentence I'd saved for exactly this moment. Your Honor, I'd like to enter Exhibit 14, my voice calm, almost gentle, the full Slack export where Mr. Calhoun instructs supervisors to push codes up on Medicaid claims to hit a 96% collection target, and the audit trail showing who executed the edits after I refused. No anger, no tremble, just facts. Rex's attorney stiffened. Slack export? Judge Costello held out a hand. Let me see it. I walked the exhibit up, each step feeling strangely quiet, like I'd moved out of the chaos Rex created and into something cleaner. The judge read for a long moment. Her eyes lifted slowly. Mr. Calhoun, she said, this appears to be a directive to alter billing in a way that could implicate federal programs. And you terminated the employee who raised concerns. Rex tried to laugh again. It came out broken. That's not... She's twisting... Judge Costello's gaze didn't move. Stop. The word landed with more force than shouting ever could. Kestrel Point's attorney leaned close to Rex, whispering urgently, face tight with damage control. Rex didn't look at him. Rex was staring at me now with a new kind of fear. Not the fear of losing one case, but the fear of realizing the thing he'd mocked me for was the thing that would expose him. Judge Costello turned back to the file. On the unemployment matter, I'm finding no misconduct. Benefits are granted. On the additional materials presented today, she tapped the Slack export lightly. I'm ordering preservation of relevant records and referring this to the appropriate agencies. Counsel, you'll advise your client accordingly. Rex's shoulders went rigid. His attorney's pen stopped moving. The courtroom emptied slowly after that. People filed out with that quiet, hungry curiosity humans get when they've witnessed a shift in power they didn't expect. Rex remained seated for a moment, frozen, as if standing would admit defeat. In the hallway, he finally found his voice, but it wasn't loud anymore. This isn't over. I looked at him once. Not with triumph, with clarity. It ended the day you decided humiliation was management, I said. The rest is just paperwork. The consequences didn't arrive as a single explosion. Real accountability rarely does. It arrives in emails marked litigation hold, in sudden calendar invites from outside counsel, in IT staff walking around like they're afraid to touch the servers. It arrives in clients asking pointed questions, and executives realizing penalties aren't just numbers on a screen when regulators start reading the same logs. Within weeks, Kestrel Point announced an internal compliance review. Within 2 months, Piedmont Ridge paused contract expansion, pending investigation. People who'd stayed silent in the war room started reaching out quietly, late at night, asking how to report what they'd seen without losing everything. Rex Calhoun didn't get to laugh publicly anymore. He was placed on leave, then stepped down, and the company's statement used soft words for hard truths: leadership transition, values alignment, enhanced oversight. The kind of language that tries to clean blood off a floor without admitting there was a wound. For me, the win was never just unemployment. It wasn't even the back pay Kestrel point eventually settled when the case widened. My withheld bonus, $8,400, my unpaid overtime from mandatory early meetings totaling 137 hours at $38 an hour, 5,206, plus penalties that suddenly made their finance team sweat. The win was breathing again without feeling like someone else had their hand on my throat. My mother finished treatment that winter. She's still here, still stubborn, still scolding me when I try to carry grocery bags. She insists she can lift herself. And I didn't go back to being quiet. I took the board role I'd kept separate from my day job and made it the center of my work. I started volunteering with a worker advocacy clinic on weekends, helping people document retaliation, file wage claims, understand the difference between policy and the law, not with speeches, with folders, with timelines, with calm. Because here's the truth I learned the hard way. Bosses like Rex rely on your isolation. They rely on you thinking you're alone, that no one will believe you, that power always wins because it's loud. But the law doesn't run on volume. It runs on records. And dignity, real dignity, doesn't beg. If you're watching this, leave a comment with the city you're watching from. And if you've ever been mocked, dismissed, or punished at work for having a life you couldn't turn off, sickness, caregiving, grief, share your experience. Someone reading your words is going to realize they're not powerless. And that realization is where the whole balance starts to shift. If you love stories where the truth is revealed, you've found your channel. Subscribe and turn on notifications to make sure you're always up to date with life's biggest secrets and dramas. And now, I want to hear from you. What life lesson did you learn from this story? Share your reflection in the comments and use the hashtag #TruthRevealed, also telling us the city you watched this drama from.